I was so happy in my life, and our family was content. Then a new person entered, and a storm of chaos and betrayal erupted, something I never could have imagined. My name is Nancy, and I'm 34 years old. I run a successful event planning business here in Chicago. My life has always been a whirlwind of planning weddings, organizing corporate events, and making sure every detail is perfect. But no matter how hectic things get at work, the one constant in my life has always been my younger brother, Arthur. We've always been incredibly close. Arthur, now 30, runs his own marketing firm, and despite our busy careers, we've always made time for each other. Growing up, our family was as tight-knit as you could imagine. Our parents are retired now, enjoying their golden years with a calm and serene lifestyle. They raised us to be supportive and loyal, and that's something Arthur and I have always taken to heart. We shared everything and had each other's backs, which made the events of the past year all the more jarring. It started when Arthur introduced us to Emily. I remember it vividly. Arthur was bubbling with excitement one evening when he called me, "Nancy, you won't believe it. I've met someone amazing. Her name is Emily, and I think she's the one." I was thrilled for him. Arthur and I have always shared our lives openly, and the thought of him finding someone special made me happy. He invited Emily to a family dinner, and I remember feeling a mix of anticipation and curiosity. When Emily walked in, she was charming and charismatic. At first glance, she seemed to fit right in with our family. As weeks passed, Emily became a regular fixture at our family gatherings. On the surface, everything seemed perfect. Emily was always smiling, chatting with everyone, and making polite conversation. But I started to notice little things that seemed off. She would make subtle, passive-aggressive comments, always veiled in sweetness but edged with criticism. For instance, during one family dinner, she smiled and said, "Oh, Nancy, still working those late nights? Don't worry, you'll find balance one day." I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe I was just being overly sensitive. But these comments kept coming, little digs at my career, my lifestyle, and even my choices. I told myself to ignore it. After all, Arthur was so head over heels in love with Emily, and our parents seemed to adore her. Over time, Emily's influence over Arthur grew stronger. He became more withdrawn and seemed to depend on Emily's opinions for everything. It was as if the once confident and independent Arthur was slowly being molded into someone new, someone who distanced himself from his family. I noticed how he started siding with Emily in every argument, and it was getting harder to have a meaningful conversation with him without Emily's shadow looming over us. Family dinners became increasingly tense. Emily's remarks were no longer just passive-aggressive, they were more direct and pointed. At first, I tried to maintain the peace, but it became more and more challenging. My feelings of unease grew as I saw how Arthur seemed to be changing, becoming quieter and more distant. One particular evening, the tension reached a boiling point. We were having a family dinner at our parents' house. The table was set, and everyone was chatting pleasantly, well, everyone except Emily and me. She had been making snide remarks throughout the meal, and I could feel the simmering frustration building inside me. Then, out of nowhere, Emily made a shocking accusation. She stood up abruptly, her face red with indignation. "Nancy, I need to speak to you. I've been missing my wallet. It had $10,000 in cash and several credit cards. I have reason to believe that you've stolen it and been using my credit cards without my permission." The room fell silent. Everyone's eyes were on me, and I was stunned. "What? Emily, that's not true." "I haven't taken anything from you," I protested. But Emily wasn't done. In a dramatic gesture, she picked up a cake and threw it at my face. I could feel the humiliation spreading across my face as my parents and Arthur looked on in shock. Arthur's expression was one of confusion, torn between his loyalty to his wife and his sister. I tried to defend myself, but Emily's accusations were like a storm drowning out my voice. I would never do something like that, Emily. You know me better than this, I said, struggling to keep my composure. Arthur was caught in the middle, his eyes darting between me and Emily. Nancy, is there something you want to tell us? He asked, his voice betraying his confusion. I don't know what's happening here, but I swear I didn't steal anything, I said, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. The dinner ended in chaos, and I was left feeling humiliated and isolated. After the dinner, I couldn't shake off the feeling of betrayal and injustice. I confided in my best friend, Vanessa. I don't know what's going on, but Emily is up to something. I can't believe she'd accuse me like that. Vanessa listened intently. I've noticed how Emily's been treating you. It's not right. Maybe we should look into this. There might be more to her than meets the eye. That's when I decided I needed to find out the truth about Emily. I knew something was wrong, and I was determined to uncover what it was, no matter where it led. After that humiliating dinner, I couldn't just sit back and let things slide. The accusation had shaken me to my core. I knew I had to find out the truth about her if I wanted to clear my name and protect my family. I reached out to Vanessa, who had always been a voice of reason and support in my life. Vanessa, I need your help, I said when we met for coffee the next day. Something's seriously wrong with Emily, and I can't shake the feeling that she's hiding something. Vanessa's eyes widened with concern. What happened, Nancy? I recounted the events from the dinner, the accusations, the cake thrown in my face, and Arthur's torn expression. I just can't believe Arthur's wife would accuse me of something so terrible without any proof. Vanessa nodded thoughtfully. We need to look into Emily's background. There has to be something we can find that explains her behavior. I agreed, and we decided to start digging. The first step was to learn more about Emily's past. Vanessa suggested reaching out to people who might know more about her. I remembered Emily mentioning her previous job at a marketing firm before she met Arthur. Maybe someone from her old job might know something. Vanessa said, that's when we contacted Rose, a former coworker of Emily. Rose had left the firm a few months before Emily, and Vanessa was able to track her down. We arranged to meet her at a quiet cafe. Rose was hesitant at first but agreed to talk once she realized we were genuinely concerned. When we met Rose, she looked nervous but determined. I don't know if this will help, but Emily wasn't exactly well liked at the firm, Rose began. She was known for being manipulative and deceitful. There were rumors about her getting involved in some shady activities, but nothing was ever proven. I listened intently, feeling a mix of dread and curiosity. What kind of activities are we talking about? I asked. Rose hesitated before continuing. There were incidents where money went missing, and Emily was always at the center of those situations. I'm not saying she's guilty, but it's strange how things seemed to disappear whenever she was around. She also had a tendency to pit people against each other. I wouldn't be surprised if she's up to something now. Her words sent chills down my spine. I knew I needed more concrete information, so Vanessa and I decided to hire a private investigator. I contacted a reputable firm in Chicago, and they agreed to take on the case. We provided them with as much information as we had about Emily, including her previous job and any connections she might have. The private investigator, Mark, was thorough and professional. He promised to keep us updated and began his work immediately. As days passed, the tension became unbearable. Every time my phone rang, my heart skipped a beat, hoping for news. Then, one afternoon, Mark called with some shocking revelations. Nancy, I have some information you need to hear. Emily has been using multiple aliases and has a history of fraud. My heart raced. What do you mean? Mark explained that Emily was not who she claimed to be. She had used different names to open various accounts and had been involved in several fraudulent activities. Most alarming was her involvement in money laundering. The amount she had funneled through various schemes added up to over $500,000. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. This is unbelievable. How has she managed to stay under the radar for so long? Mark sighed. She's very good at covering her tracks, but the evidence we've gathered shows a clear pattern of deceit. She's been manipulating people to cover her tracks and keep her schemes running smoothly. The news was devastating. I had suspected Emily was trouble, but I never imagined she was capable of such large-scale fraud. My main concern now was how to approach Arthur with this information. I knew he would be devastated, and I was torn between wanting to protect him and fearing that exposing Emily might drive him further away. I decided to confront Emily directly. I called Arthur and asked him to meet at a neutral location, somewhere we could talk without interruptions. Arthur arrived, looking anxious, and I could see the concern in his eyes. Arthur, I need to talk to you about Emily, I started, my voice trembling. I've found out some disturbing information. Arthur's face fell. What do you mean? What's going on? I took a deep breath and tried to explain everything we had discovered about Emily's fraudulent activities and her history of deceit. I showed Arthur some of the evidence we had gathered, including statements from Rose and documents from the private investigator. Arthur looked overwhelmed. Nancy, I don't know what to say. This is all so much to take in. I could see the pain in his eyes, and it broke my heart. I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but I couldn't let you be deceived any longer. Emily has been manipulating all of us, and it's time we face the truth. Arthur's expression was a mix of disbelief and anger. How could I have been so blind? I trusted her completely. I put a comforting hand on his shoulder. We'll get through this. We have to act quickly to protect you and your business from any further damage. We both knew that the road ahead would be challenging. The revelations about Emily were just the beginning, and I was determined to help Arthur confront the situation head-on, no matter how difficult it would be. The days after my confrontation with Arthur were a whirlwind of anxiety and heartbreak. He had taken the evidence seriously, but the emotional toll was evident. Arthur's disbelief and anger were palpable as he grappled with the betrayal of someone he had once loved and trusted implicitly. Meanwhile, I was determined to see this through, no matter how painful it was for all of us. Arthur and I decided to act quickly. We knew that Emily's fraudulent activities could have dire consequences for his business and our family's reputation. To get to the bottom of things, we needed to expose Emily for who she truly was and stop her before she could cause any more damage. The first step was to organize a family meeting. I felt a knot in my stomach as I prepared for what was about to unfold. Arthur and I agreed that confronting Emily in front of the family would be the best way to reveal the truth and hold her accountable. We hoped that once the family saw the evidence, they would understand why Arthur and I were taking these drastic measures. The meeting was set for a Saturday afternoon, and I could hardly contain my nerves. I knew this would be a pivotal moment, and the stakes were incredibly high. I asked Vanessa to join us for support. Her presence would provide a sense of solidarity and reassurance. When the day arrived, the atmosphere was tense. We gathered in the living room of our family home, which had always been a place of comfort and warmth. Now, it felt like the stage for an impending storm. My parents, Arthur, and Emily were all seated, looking puzzled by the unusual seriousness of the meeting. Emily, Arthur, thank you for coming, I began, trying to keep my voice steady. There's something important we need to discuss. Arthur took a deep breath. I've discovered some troubling information about Emily. I need to show everyone what we found. Emily's face tightened with apprehension, though she tried to maintain a calm demeanor. What's this about, Arthur? Why are we having this meeting? Before Arthur could respond, I stepped forward and placed the pile of documents and evidence on the coffee table. These are records and testimonies from a private investigator. They reveal a lot about Emily's past and her current activities. I saw Emily's eyes widen as Arthur began to go through the documents. As he explained Emily's history of deceit, including her use of aliases and involvement in fraudulent schemes, the room grew quieter. My parents, who had always trusted Emily and welcomed her into the family, looked increasingly distressed. Emily has been using multiple names to commit fraud, Arthur said, his voice strained. She's involved in money laundering that has affected my business, and it's estimated to be over $500,000. My parents exchanged worried glances, struggling to process the gravity of the situation. Is this true, Emily? My mother asked, her voice trembling. Emily's facade began to crack. She looked around, trying to maintain her composure, but the weight of the evidence was undeniable. Arthur, Nancy, you don't understand, this is all a misunderstanding. Arthur's eyes were filled with hurt. How could this be a misunderstanding? We have proof of your crimes. You've been manipulating us all. Emily's calm demeanor shattered. You're all fools. You think you can just throw me away like this? I've worked hard to build my life. You've ruined everything. In a fit of rage, Emily grabbed a glass of water from the table and threw it at me, soaking my clothes and the documents. The dramatic outburst left everyone in shock. My father stood up, his face flushed with anger. How dare you accuse Nancy and throw water at her? You have no right to treat our family like this. Emily's outburst was a desperate attempt to deflect attention from her guilt. I don't need to stay here and be accused. You can all believe whatever lies you want. Just as Emily was about to leave, the sound of sirens pierced the tension in the room. The police had arrived, responding to a tip-off about Emily's fraudulent activities. I had anticipated that Emily might try to flee, so I had discreetly contacted law enforcement, hoping they would arrive in time. The police officers entered the room and began to question Emily. They had a warrant based on the evidence we provided, and Emily's attempts to deny the charges only added to her desperation. As the officers escorted her out, she continued to protest, but the evidence against her was overwhelming. Arthur, still in shock, looked at me with a mix of gratitude and sorrow. I can't believe this is happening. I never thought Emily would be capable of something like this. I placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. We had to do what was necessary to protect you and our family. It was the right thing to do. As Emily was taken away, I could see the toll the situation had taken on Arthur. He was devastated, and I knew that the road to recovery would be long. But at least the truth was out, and the manipulative shadow Emily had cast over our lives was finally being lifted. The family meeting had been a turning point, but it was far from the end of our troubles. We had to navigate the aftermath of the scandal and support Arthur as he worked to rebuild his business and process the betrayal. For now, all we could do was face the challenges ahead, knowing that the truth had come to light and that we had taken a stand for justice. The aftermath of Emily's arrest was a whirlwind of emotions and challenges for Arthur and me. The shock of discovering Emily's true nature was still fresh, and the process of recovering from her deceit felt overwhelming. It was a time of intense reflection and difficult decisions. In the weeks following Emily's arrest, Arthur faced a barrage of legal and financial issues. The fraud she had perpetrated not only tainted his business reputation but also threatened its very existence. With the help of his legal team, he worked tirelessly to untangle the mess Emily had left behind. The stress was immense, and Arthur was often seen buried under piles of paperwork and financial reports. I stayed by Arthur's side, offering support and helping him navigate the complexities of the situation. Our family came together, united by the desire to help Arthur recover and rebuild. My parents, though shaken, were determined to offer their unconditional support. They often reminded Arthur that he was not alone and that we would face these trials as a family. Vanessa, my steadfast friend, remained a crucial part of our support network. She helped me manage the emotional strain and provided invaluable assistance with gathering and organizing evidence. Her dedication and encouragement were instrumental in keeping me focused and grounded. Arthur's path to recovery was fraught with obstacles. The legal battles were time-consuming and draining, and the damage to his business was substantial. However, he was determined to fight back and restore his company's reputation. He sought help from financial experts and worked with law enforcement to ensure that Emily's accomplices, if any, were also brought to justice. As the weeks turned into months, Arthur began to see some progress. The business slowly started to recover, thanks in large part to the efforts of his dedicated staff and supportive clients. It was a long and challenging road, but Arthur's resilience and determination began to pay off. Meanwhile, Emily's legal troubles continued. Her trial was a highly publicized affair, with the media eagerly covering the sensational details of her fraud. The courtroom drama unfolded as testimonies from victims like Rose and others were presented. Emily's attempts to manipulate and spin the narrative fell flat in the face of overwhelming evidence. The judicial system worked diligently to ensure that justice was served. Arthur and I attended the trial, seeking closure and a sense of justice. Seeing Emily's demeanor in court was both unsettling and validating. Her arrogance and contempt for the truth were starkly revealed, and it was clear that she had been living a lie for a long time. When the verdict was finally delivered, Emily was found guilty of multiple counts of fraud and sentenced to a significant prison term. The judge's decision was a bittersweet moment for us. While it brought some measure of justice, the scars of her actions would take time to heal. In the months following Emily's conviction, our family began the slow process of rebuilding. The experience had tested our bonds but also reinforced our commitment to one another. Arthur worked hard to repair his business and regain the trust of his clients and partners. It wasn't easy, but each small victory was a step towards recovery. Arthur also began to open up more about his feelings and the impact of Emily's betrayal. He sought therapy to process the emotional toll and to work through his feelings of guilt and anger. It was a painful but necessary journey, and I supported him every step of the way. As for me, I found solace in knowing that I had stood up for what was right and protected my family. The ordeal had been a profound test of our loyalty and resilience, but it had also taught us the importance of trust and perseverance. I had learned that confronting uncomfortable truths was not always easy, but it was crucial for preserving the integrity of our family. Our family gatherings, once strained and tense, gradually returned to a sense of normalcy. Though the scars of the past remained, we chose to focus on the future and the strength we had found in each other. We celebrated small victories and cherished the moments of togetherness that had become even more precious. Reflecting on this journey, I realized that the experience, though painful, had taught us invaluable lessons. We learned the importance of vigilance, the power of truth, and the unbreakable bond of family. Despite the trials and tribulations, we emerged stronger and more united. As I look back on these events, I am reminded of the resilience of the human spirit and the power of standing up for what is right. Our family story is a testament to the strength of love and loyalty, even in the face of adversity. We have faced our darkest moments and emerged into the light, ready to embrace the future with hope and determination. The story of Emily's deception and the subsequent journey of healing and rebuilding is a powerful reminder that, even in the most challenging times, the bonds of family and the pursuit of justice can lead to a brighter, more resilient future.